All right. Good evening, everyone. Hope you guys had a really good trading day. Had a quite an expansive move for Bitcoin. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what we're seeing here on the daily time frame. So far for Bitcoin, this was an extremely bullish move right here. No wick to the downside, which is extremely rare. So we were able to close this candle with no wick to the downside. We also closed above this 63,503 area that I was targeting. We kind of have been hovering around it, kind of testing it as support now on this new daily candle. So that's a really good sign for the bulls, right? You're now above weekly open as well. Um, Actually, let me get rid of this line. So now you're above weekly open. You're above that 63,503. The next point, if we're going to stay bullish, would be testing out this 64,150 area, in my opinion. So let's go ahead and drill down into some of the smaller time frames. I'm going to start at the 8 hour. Um, so the 8 hour, kind of the same thing here. Again, targeting that double top right there. That would be my next point that I would target for taking out some short liquidity there. Moving into the 4 hour. So let's see. I want to take a look and see. So yeah, we had a green dot a while ago, but the only thing is on the 4 and the 8, your stochastics are high right here. So this is not a great sign. We can still keep moving, but it's not the best sign. We did have a really bullish move. We can definitely, as long as we can stay above our weekly open and our 63,503, and close. I'm not saying, in the smaller time frames we can't close candles below these areas. I'm saying, maybe the bigger time frames like the 8 hour, the 12 hour, the daily. You want to make sure that those are closing the candle bodies above the weekly and the 63,503 now. We don't want to close these bigger candles below those areas. Okay. Um, so the daily's been kind of in this pattern for the past few days. We've had it looks like ever since about June 4th. So we've had compression, expansion, compression, expansion, compression, expansion, compression, expansion. So I'm wondering if this new candle that we just had opened, if it's going to also be a compression candle, and then we're going to get another expansion move. So we're kind of in this flow right now of compression and expansion candles. So that's something to note as well. So this next tomorrow's price movement, we may not get a huge range. It may be another compression candle. Obviously, some of these compressions do have a decent size range within a couple $1,000s, so we could get something like that. But as far as the body closing, it may be somewhat of a compression candle. Um, let's move into the 1 hour, kind of see what we're seeing short term. So short term, this could potentially break out bullishly, right? I mean, you could even be saying that we're testing that right now. The only thing is with this, right, that I'm a little bit concerned about is, we are somewhat. If we do break out, we would be technically pumping at the beginning of this daily open. Not that this mattered really for yesterday's candle, but you always usually for a candle you want to see a wick on both sides, and normally if we're going to be bullish, we want to see a wick, pretty strong wick to the downside first. Now, if we are entering extremely bullish times, we may just get, a small wick to the downside, or, on the daily, we didn't have any, this yesterday's candle, we didn't have any wick at all, right, to the downside. So it doesn't mean that we would need to even drop even further than this. It already tested that 63,503 area. It may be done, and it could keep expanding. We don't know yet. So just something to keep in mind. Again, the 15-minute kind of reflects the 1 hour. Very interesting kind of consolidation area. I mean, I guess you could call this somewhat of a bullish pattern. It could be an inverted head and shoulders. Um, I'm I could say that it's something like this where it went out of the pattern, came back in. Maybe it breaks out upwards. Let's see what that would take us to here. So that's saying we get to 65,000, which is technically I think realistic with liquidity. Let's take a look. I'm gonna put a line here and see if that lines up with some liquidity areas. But that could be our next target on a bullish case. Something to think about here. So let's go ahead and move on to the liquidity and also our order book chart as well on Kiyotaka. So When it comes to liquidity, let's take a look at the daily first to see if anything's changed. Right. Let me check off all these boxes here for liquidity pools. So it doesn't look like anything has really changed here when it comes to liquidity. We don't have any bridging liquidity yet, which is fine. But we do still have that downside potential to that 40, 46K, 47K area. So nothing too different yet when it comes to liquidity. Um, the 4 hour, let's take a look here if we just check off 25x. So the 4 hour, I think I said 65K. That really aligns with this green pool of liquidity right here. If we just have the 25x checked off, so that would be diving into this right here, which if you zoom in, it turns red. So that definitely is a possibility. I know that we're starting to have some more of this bridging liquidity down here, but we obviously don't have to take it yet. We could take this out first and possibly even consolidate and see whether or not we're going to go down for this. Let's drill into the 1 hour and the 15 as well to see what's going on there. So let's see the 1 hour. Yeah, I mean, we have still quite a bit of upside potential when it comes to the 100x liquidity as well as the 50x. You can see all of these red bands up here. So the measured move of that current flag that we're in does tell us that we could potentially get up to this 65K area. So that would be wiping out all of this 100x and 50x liquidity above us, which is probably very realistic for how the market's been acting currently. And then obviously the 15-minute, which we can align with Kiyotaka over here, and you can see that 100x and 50x kind of the same thing as a 1 hour. Kiyotaka does show orders all the way up through 64,500 it looks like, so that would take us right about there. Part of the measure move, right? Not the full measure move per se, but it doesn't mean that some of these will get absorbed possibly, and even there's a potential that they will give acceleration, right? They'll get absorbed and they won't bounce down, but they'll actually help the move to continue to the upside. So overall, what I'm seeing is there is a good chance that short term, as long as we can keep, staying above the weekly open at 63,303, and then obviously keeping above this level that I've been looking at, 63,503. As long as we can hold that, there's a good chance that we're going to slowly make our way upward. I don't know if it's going to be a quick move or it's going to be a slow move. Now, one thing I will say, one caveat to that is that there's a decent chance we could also be rounding up here as well. So rounding out this top and dumping down. We've been making a lot of lower highs, haven't really visited in this area yet. So there's a chance that we come down here for a 786 retracement at some point. Another thing I'll say as well is, it's also going to depend on, obviously tomorrow we have that SpaceX IPO releasing, and so there's going to be quite a bit of volatility potentially in the market tomorrow. So just kind of be wary of that. I would not be overly bullish yet. I would say that right now the market's at a state where we are leaning bullish. But we're not. This move was really a great move up. We're testing, some of our what was resistance for us, and we're now making it support. But I wouldn't say that we're in an area right now where it's like the bull market's back on or we're extremely bullish. I think that the market's more so right now leaning bullish. But again, it's not like a guarantee that some of these moves are going to play out just yet, as far as bias wise goes. So my bias right now is that we are leaning bullish. Okay, and you can see down here, and let's take a look here at 62,681. Do we have liquidity down here on the smaller time frames? We have it 100x down to 62,965, 50x. We do have down, even taking out even further than that. We do have a spot to take out this kind of, I guess, this bottom right here at 63K, but we do have liquidity, right? That could be that for that 786 that we were talking about here. So just a few things to keep in mind, guys. As far as lines on the chart for right now, I would say make sure that you have your 63,503, your weekly open at 63,303. Potentially the 62, 681 level, that would potentially be a great entry if we get down there, and we're still somewhat bullish. Um, and then up above, you have the 64, 150. You have the 65K, the 64,993 for the measured move. And then obviously down below, you still have that 61, 157. And you have the 60,189. I would say those are some great lines to keep on your chart for right now to see how they are respected as support or resistance levels. So anyway, guys, I hope that you found this informative. I will talk to you guys in the morning. Take care.